Let me know as I read through them. 2.1, the sections 2.1 through 214 all have to do with bids for FF&E at Southside High School. So 2.1 is approval of bids for study carrels and art table furniture. 2.2, approval of bids for medical and training tables furniture. 2.3, approval of bids for makerspace equipment. 2.4, approval of bids for dining area equipment. 2.5, approval of bids for mobile desk and chairs. 2.6, approval of bids for office task chairs and filing cabinets. 2.7, approval of bids for collaboration conference and administration miscellaneous furniture. 2.8, approval of bids for outdoor tables furniture. 2.9, approval of bids for systems office furniture. 2.10, approval of bids for collaboration space furniture. 2.11, approval of bids for classrooms and library furniture. 2.12, approval of bids for computer lab tables furniture. 2.13, approval of bids for small appliances. 2.14, approval of bids for shelving, utility storage, and charge carts equipment. Okay. 2.15, approval of bids for L. Leo Giudice Elementary Library additions and renovations. 2.16, approval of quotes for Milton Elementary Middle asbestos flooring abatement. 2.17, approval of quotes for GT Linden Elementary playground equipment. 2.18, approval of quotes for Falk Elementary and Karen Crow High asbestos flooring abatement. 2.19, Resolution 04-17-1905, Cooperative Endeavor Agreement, Road to Southside High School, Section 16, Youngsville.
Pull that, please.
2.20, General Fund Budget Revision, L. Leo Giudice Elementary Projects. 2.21, Resolution 04-17-1906, Appointment of Special Counsel.
Madam President, I move that we approve all items not pulled.
All right, the motion on the floor is to approve everything that I just read except for the one item pulled by Mr. Santani. If any members of the public have any comments on any of those items, now is your opportunity. Ms. Sonia?
Madam President, I'm Pat Sonier, and I just have a question. As a member of the public, we don't have a list of the items or the cost of the items, and no one has seen it. So there's a lack of transparency there that I think the public would like to be able to see. And it was not online. They said it would be handed out at the meeting, but we received nothing. So I just have a question. What is it? What are we buying? And what do these items cost? Thank you.
Mr. Guidry or Dr. Aguilar?
Ms. Sonia, I think they're attached to my agenda item. There are recommendations from the staff listing what is included in the base bid, installation, lump sum, and the total amounts.
Mr. Knezik, you are correct. Each agenda item has an attachment, Ms. Saunier, and the attachment indicates the recommendations from the architectural firm reviewing the bids and the recommendation for the low bidder. That one pager you have is a summary of the. Ms. Sonia, we don't list all of the items, but you can go back on the prior meetings and look at the request for bids.
Madam President.
Yes.
May I ask the superintendent, when the bids were originally put out, and these bids I believe were put out twice because the first time we only got one bid back. So these bids were publicly put out twice. So I'm going to go out on a limb here and assume that in order for a company to bid on items, the items would have had to been listed. So is that correct?
You're correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Bordelon?
Good evening, members of the board. Kyle Bordelon, Director of Planning and Facilities. Mr. Hidalgo is correct. We did bid these twice. The first round, we had some issues with the bids, so we both times they were publicly advertised. The bid packages were available online through lettermans.com, where there was a full bid package listing all of the furniture that was requested. All of the bidding documents were in there. So I don't know if it's available still now that we've already received the bids. But again, it was publicly advertised 2 different occasions with all the bid packages and specifications posted.
Mr. Knesset?
Mr. Bordelon, would that information be available if somebody requested it today?
We can definitely do that.
Thank you.
It'll be volumes of information, though, I can promise you that.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Santani?
Furthermore, Mr. Bordelon, if someone asked to see the bids that responded to the advertisement, would that be available today?
All of those documents on those 2 chairs are the bids that were received.
Thank you very much.
All right. Any additional comments from members of the public?
Yes, and so I think the end result is if someone wanted to make a public records request, they can certainly do so.
Okay. All right. And then any further comments or questions from members of the board? All right, Madam Secretary, I'll call for the vote.
Eight for, none against.
All right, the remaining item to be discussed is 2.19, Resolution 04-17-1905, Cooperative Endeavor Agreement. Mr. Santani?
Ms. Morris or Madam President, let me make sure I read the correct recommendation here. Well, I move that we approve the resolution 04-17-1905.
A second?
All right, there was a second by Mr. Knesset.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. All right, any questions or comments from members of the public on item 2.19? All right, questions or comments from members of the board? Mr. Santani?
I have 2 very simple questions. Mr. Dugai, you can make your way up here. I think you'll have the answer for me. Did we request that this road be constructed, or did the city of Youngsville request the donation of land in exchange for building the road?
That'd actually probably be a question for the superintendent.
Mrs. Santani, my recollection is that the city of Youngsville requested that this road be built.
And what is do we have an approximate cost? I saw that we're going to share the cost of buying out the current lessee, I guess would be the term. What would be the cost of buying, the total cost, so that I can know what half of it is?
We don't have that computed yet. Per our agreement, it's computed by the LSU Ag Center. So first of all, we need to see exactly what kind of property they're going to take, and then we send all that information to the Ag Center to have that computation done. And it's dependent on the age of the cane. There's a lot of factors.
You got a worst case scenario for me?
Because I really don't know how much land they're taking, or with the cane lasts for 3 years, so if they've just planted it, it's a lot more valuable than if it's in its second or third year, and I have no idea. So that could triple it, depending on when the cane was planted, and that's not disclosed till the point where we rip up the property. And, you know, if we can delay it for a few weeks and get the cane harvested, that might be substantially cheaper. So depending on the timing, it's a whole lot of...
And then which budget will this money be appropriated from?
That would be coming from would that be coming from the debt proceeds for the construction of the school?
And so there would need to be a budget revision in the event that after the price is calculated. I guess my question now becomes, is this going to come before us again?
In a budget revision, yes.
After the agreement?
Yeah, it's going to be something in the range of maybe 10,000. I hate to put
That's fine.
Huge number in a $78 million. The question is, will USDA approve it? I mean, that is another issue because it is a USDA financing.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Any other questions or comments? Madam Secretary, I'll call for the vote.
Eight for, none against.
All right, that concludes our meeting.
Ms. Morris,
Yes.
just a reminder and an invitation to the board members to possibly attend the Scott City Council meeting tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Scott City Council will consider adopting a resolution of support for our tax.
Excellent, thank you. All right, everybody, have a good evening.
Well.